Hi, my name is Sandra. I just graduated from occupational therapy school. I earned a doctorate in occupational therapy, which did cost me money. It cost me about $130,000 to be exact. I recently passed my board exams, got an OT license, and secured employment. So I am going to now start the process of figuring out my exact financial situation. So with that, I'm gonna set up my budget with you guys and talk about my plan to pay off my six-figure student loan debt as quickly as possible. Because I work in healthcare, I do have the option to pursue things like student loan forgiveness, but with public student loan forgiveness, that requires 10 years of employment full-time. I think that's a really great and safe option and a really smart financial option where you just pay your minimums for 10 years and pay it off, and the total savings over those 10 years is significant for my level of debt. However, that doesn't align with my personal goals. I really aspire to have financial flexibility and financial freedom before 10 years, and I took on these loans fully expecting to pay the money off. So in order to reduce the amount of interest I spend and pay the loans back as quickly as possible, I am in a position to aggressively pay the loan. We'll talk about what that looks like as we do our budget, but my goal is to pay them off in 5 years or less. So let's set up a budget together. I'm actually gonna do this kind of backwards because the job that I have is PRN, but there's plenty of hours available. So my goal is to figure out how much I need to work in order to hit all my financial goals. So I'm gonna put my needs and payments in first in order to figure out what my income needs to be at a minimum. My needs include a phone bill, which is $50 a month. I have car insurance, which is $60 a month. And then things like groceries, fuel, date money, I split with my partner, or I will be splitting with my partner. So I will just be paying him those things. And that will come out to $970 a month. Split expenses, $975, and that's it. So what you'll notice here is that I do not have payments for rent or utilities, and that is because my partner owns his home, and we've agreed together that my priority is paying off my student loans, and so if I can save money in that space, I'm gonna do that. This is a huge privilege. It also is us being a team and working towards a shared goal. It doesn't quite make sense for me to be paying him rent when he can afford the home and I can be using that money towards my loans. So this is something that we've agreed on as a partnership, and it's a huge privilege to allow me to pay my debt off early. If this weren't the case, I would be looking for roommates, not living in the nicest part of town to save money in that area. But this is just my situation, and I'm sharing my behind the scenes, and if it's not exactly yours, that's okay. It's mine. I'm doing you the favor of sharing my personal finances. Basically, I'm saying bug off if you have like an issue. That moves us to debt payments. In order to pay my loans off in 5 years without refinancing them, I need to pay $2,500 a month. That's to me my minimum payment. Our split expenses allow us to live pretty comfortably. We're definitely not pinching pennies at this price. It allows us to eat healthier food, have some space to have experiences together, go camping, buy a few toys. Like, we're not balling out at that split expense money, but that limits how much I need to spend personally because things like coffee and dinner are built into that. And that's a priority for us, is to have like life experiences during this debt payoff journey. With limits, of course. We're not gonna go to a 5-star all-inclusive resort, but it allows us to go out to dinner a couple of times a month. So for my personal items, these are gonna be things like scrub replacements, clothing, running shoes when I need them, hanging out with friends that doesn't fall into our split expenses. I'm gonna budget $200 a month. And this is absolutely an area where I can do no spending in if needed. So that leaves my monthly income that I need in order to hit all of these goals at $37.85. I do have savings goals as well. So I want to have an emergency fund, and I want that to be funded at $10,000. I did work through school, so I do have savings already, and I am going to allocate those savings to set up that. I have about $15,000 in a savings account. I'm gonna use some of that money to pay off my student loan interest that was accrued during school, and we'll do that today. And then the rest of the money is gonna fund some of these savings buckets, and I'm really excited about that. So my goals are $10,000 in this account. I would like a car maintenance fund to be funded at $3,000. I do drive a 2010 Subaru Outback. The car is fully paid off, which was important to me. My goal is to drive this car forever. Not forever, but at least until my loans are paid off. Because it's a higher mileage and older vehicle, I know that it's gonna have some more expensive maintenance in order to do that, but I'd rather spend $3,000 on this car to keep it running another 40,000 miles than go buy a new car or an older used car that I don't know the history of. And that that fund can also be used if something drastic happens as a down payment for a new car if needed. Would like $1,500 a year in travel. This is just an important thing to me. Okay, might be like, Sandra, you're paying off student loans, you shouldn't travel at all. Great, I'm paying off $130,000 in loans over 5 years, so I want to live a little during that process. Okay, I'll start a fund for clothing. Let's say $800 for the year. I don't think I'll spend this, but if something needed comes up, it's nice to have a bucket to pull from. And then our ski passes are $400 a year. Whoops, I'm broke. So now I'm gonna go back through this and figure out how much I need to save monthly in order for this to happen. I know that my emergency fund is gonna be fully funded from the money that I have saved during school. I also know that my car fund will be partially funded. I'll fund it to $1,500. So I need to save $125 a month in order to get that to $3,000 a year. Travel, same thing. We're just gonna divide that by 12, and that is another $125 a month. Clothing we're gonna divide by 12, means that I need to put away $66 a month, and ski passes is another $35 a month that I need to save. So in total, I need to bring home $4,137 a month. Let's assume that I'm taxed at 20%. That's gonna be too high, but we're gonna be conservative here. I'm gonna do 4,137 times 1.2 to get my income that I need to make, and that's $49.64. We're gonna divide that by my pay, divided by 8 hours. I need to work 15 and a half days each month in order to meet my minimum expenses. Any day that I work over 15 and a half days, it's gonna be extra money that I throw towards my student loans. Now I'm gonna make my first student loan payment. So as you guys can see, I have $127,978.97 in student loans to pay off. $122,000 and change of this is from the principal, and then interest has been accruing on it since September, and that's about $5,000 of interest. I do have 5 different loans, and this loan has the highest interest rate. Because I just graduated, my loans are either in a grace period or deferment until November. So the interest is accruing. Because I'm a graduate student, the interest still accrues, but it is not being added to the principal until September. So I won't be earning interest on interest or losing interest on interest. Interest won't be accruing on interest yet. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a huge payment towards this student loan. It's at 7.5% and pay that down as much as possible. I'm gonna pay off all my interest before November, but this loan that has the highest interest rate, I'm gonna work on paying down some of the principal while I can afford it and make larger payments towards that loan during this time. And then once November rolls around, I'll make minimum payments for all of the other 4 loans and throw all the extra money at the 5th loan with the highest interest rate. So that's my game plan to get started. I wanna wipe out this 7.5% interest rate loan first. The ones that are at 5.2%, I actually earn more money than that in my high yield savings account, so I am not super stressed about those yet. I do want them gone, but I'm gonna tackle the higher interest rate loans first. So I'm gonna pay $3,000 towards this loan, and that'll pay off all of the interest on the loan plus $1,500 worth of principal. So that's a good start. So this payment will take a couple days to process, but when that happens, I've made my official first student loan payment. First of many. If you are considering going to a program where you know you're gonna have to take student loans out, sit down, look at what the number realistically is gonna be, and make a plan before you even go to school of what your approach is gonna be. Seeing this number is not a surprise to me. I knew the cost of my education was gonna be in tuition. It was $160,000. I received scholarships for, I believe, $25,000 of that, and then I paid for my first year, I paid a little bit out of pocket. And then I also chose to go to a hybrid program over a regular occupational therapy program that would have been slightly cheaper because I knew I could work during the hybrid program much easier, which would then save me money in the long term because I didn't take a single dime in student loans for living expenses. I only paid part of my tuition with student loans. Whereas if I had gone to a regular program where I didn't have flexibility to work, I would have had to take student loans for living expenses. So I took about $120,000 in loans for occupational therapy. I knew the average incomes at the time for OT, and this was in 2019. They've only gone up since, especially with the pandemic. So having a plan going in and having none of this be a surprise to me was incredibly helpful, and also doing everything I could to minimize the amount of loans that I was taking. If I pay my loans off in 5 years, I'll pay about $20,000 in interest. So it'll cost me $20,000 to have borrowed the money to go to school. Is a much more cost-effective way to do things than if I had tried to work for 5 5 or 6 years at a lower income, I wouldn't have been able to save enough money. And the price of school would have just increased probably more than $20,000. So the opportunity cost of going to school when I did and borrowing the money to do it was also worth it. I do have issues with the American education system and the cost of education in this country. I'm not justifying that cost in any way, shape, or form, but it was a reality to pursue a career that I was interested in. And so I did everything to make it as affordable for myself as possible. And now I'm doing everything I can to tackle that debt as quickly as possible. I do have privileges. I have earned privileges and I have inherent privileges. All those privileges make it easier for me to pay my loans off. And I am sharing my money journey with you in the hopes that it helps you take initiative over your finances and just to be another person providing a transparent lens into their finances. So if you're interested in that, subscribe, tag along. We're at the very start of our journey now, so we have a long time together and I'm excited to have you here. Thank you for watching this first video and welcome along for the ride.